Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to Paws On Animation.
Today we're covering part 2 of season 2 of Tiger and Bunny.
Yes.
And for this one, you had the first part that came out back in July, and then they have part 2 in October. Which is weird because October seemed to be the month of all this anime coming back. So, in part 2, they do like season 1 and start a whole new story for the other 13 or so episodes. And in this one, apparently there's a virus outbreak that's only affecting necks. And people have grown scared or hateful of them all over again, just like it happened in season 1. So apparently this time we're retreading season 1 again.
But before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on our future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
Yes. So we were excited when the first half came out because we haven't been waiting 10 years for the anime to come back, but we haven't been waiting a while since seeing it on Netflix. And now that when it came back, we were thrilled. Then we started watching it, and it was nothing anyone expected. When it got to the end of the first half, it looked like it was getting back into the groove of what we used to watch. Then we get to part 2, and then it was a whole different show.
We weren't naive enough to think that it was going to be exactly the same as the first, but we did hope there would be some similarities. We did hope it would pick up where it left off. We did hope it would have the same feel, the same passion. What made Tiger and Bunny is what we really were hoping for. And there were some elements that were there, but unfortunately for the most part, what made this series stand out and be the #1 anime in Japan for 10 years when it left the air and still #1, it didn't return with those elements. But we are glad the 2 main voice actors did return.
Right. And we already said that most of the cast of the original season returned, but others were swapped out either because they had other commitments to other shows, or they had their own thing, or there was something controversial off stage and they could not come back. So for here, they already had like Josh Keaton and Max Middleton on the first half. So in this half, they actually got more Netflix contracted voice actors to do the new characters. And the problem with this half is that, just like we had mentioned for the first half, they seem to be just redoing what season 1 had. You had the first half with Jake and his attack. And then the second half, you had the thing with Oroburos and the boss of the company secretly being a next, and this whole big false memories arc going that was really engaging. Well, in here, they don't do the false memories arc again in here. They do more of the trigger drug, like an MHA, and this guy, you don't find out till like the last episode, this guy is getting to people that have powers, and he gives them a certain drug or is mind control, and they go on a rampage, and their powers are out of control, and they're no longer control their own bodies or minds. They're like rabid zombies. And that's the entire focus of the season.
Well, that and Tiger and Bunny are really kind of different in terms of their personalities. Now, we are glad that Yuri Lowenthal and Wally Winger returned. Yes, that was the best thing that they could have done, and not replace them with other voice actors. So, hooray for that. But we kind of thought that they would have moved along in their friendship. And in some ways it did. In one weird way, is Bunny cried a lot.
Yeah.
We kind of didn't understand why.
Right.
And the second thing was, by now we just thought they would be roommating bros.
Yes.
But Bunny's in a different house, a big house instead of an apartment. And now Tiger's in a big house instead of an apartment.
Right.
And they're meeting up for dinner and
coffee and all that.
But it's like they were bros by the end of the second movie. And it's not translating to the second half of the second core, I should say.
Right.
It didn't translate in the first core either, but it really doesn't translate here. And
That's
like
true.
Rascal said, when you got to the last 3 episodes of the first core, we were like, oh baby, they're back. It was like Tiger and Bunny all the way back to the first season. It felt the same. It had the same action, feel. They were being superheroes. They were all working together. They were vibing off each other. It was perfect. Then we got to the first few episodes of the second core, and it was like something happened, and they started back at zero.
Right. And we had mentioned also in the other podcast that the animation was really different because Netflix was involved. And we've seen them share the process of making the episodes. Well, it seems like they still went a cheaper route because they do so much talking in this season that there's barely any action. Half of the episodes in all Tiger and Bunny 2 are just consistent of them having slice of life adventures, talking to each other, talking about their buddies or partners, talking about how they need to work together, talking about their emotions, talking about their family. It's talking until they finally get to the action near the end of the season or series. There is so much talking in here that it's like they forgot to do any action, or they didn't want to put any money into action until near the end because this was easier to animate.
The biggest question is, what happened to Oroburos?
Yes, and a lot of people thought that was going to be the season 2 focus because it's hinted that they control the entire city at the end of season 1, and that was going to be season 2. Well, we watched it. Oroburos is still out there. Not one tune do they talk about finding out who's in charge and taking them down. Someone actually comes forward that they're near the lead, but they're taken out automatically near the end. There is no repercussions. There's no conclusion. They're just still out there. And none of the characters say or think about going after this organization. They try to handle the people that they've sent out from them, but there's never an episode or an arc or any point that was going to show them taking down the organization was going to be this bigger adventure, maybe even outside of Sternville. It never shows up, and people were very disappointed that that didn't happen.
And from the way that it ends, you can't tell if there's going to be season 3. And we're thinking, well, since they didn't capture Oroburos and they didn't solve this, you're thinking there's got to be another season, but we haven't seen anything about it, and we hope there's not another 10 years. You got to wait to see the conclusion, because then there'll probably be even more changes. One other thing that really was kind of confusing about this core is how they decided to have an arc on the heroes not being able to keep their powers because of the illness that was going around.
Yes.
And they were going to put them on what were the equivalent of concentration camps. I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
I don't know. It seemed like they adapted a lot of what happened in the past 10 years, and most more the last couple years, like with the event of the pandemic and elections and social commentaries and things that happen primarily in the West. It seemed like Tiger and Bunny kind of did like the We Bare Bears movie. They decided to not do the story that was promised or hinted at. They decided to make commentary on events happening here in America. And all of it was written in there. Though the virus was the equivalent of the pandemic, these are the concentration camps were equivalent of other things. There's even talks of not trusting the mayor, which was equivalent to the politics.
Buddy system.
The buddy system was more of a parallel to people partnering up, and they wrote it off as it's the buddy system, but a lot of people caught on as more like almost all the characters were now a ship, but it was never confirmed, but we kind of figured it out. And that's part of what it meant of making the season not enjoyable. Plus, when it's also shown, a lot of people had noticed when they had dubbed the show, certain dialogues were changed to match Western audiences. Like, there was more talking about women being more controlled. It was more about you shouldn't be judging people on how they look or who they are or who they date, which is things that never really came up in the show. The worst you had was calling Tiger old because he'd been around over 10 years being a hero, and them treating Nex. That pretty much took care of any sort of social commentary you had. But this season, it was so heavy-handed that you kind of forgot that this was supposed to be a superhero show.
So lastly for me, always be Tiger and Bunny fans. Will I not ever watch the show? Absolutely not. I will always watch it.
Yes.
Was I thrilled with this season or the second half of this season? No, I honestly wasn't. In the end, when it ended, there were some things left unanswered. There were some things that just didn't make sense how it ended.
Right.
Of course, Tiger, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it,
Yeah.
turn it off now.
Play now.
Tiger losing his powers and them taking him away was one of the cruelest things they could have ever done to their favorite character.
Yes.
We love both Tiger and Bunny, but Tiger has ended up, over the past 10 years, being the favorite character. And it seemed like they wanted people like Bunny more. Why couldn't you just accept we love them both? And then you decide to say, well, you know what? Since you like Tiger more and this is not the character we want to push, we're just going to take away all his powers and all you got is Bunny. How about that? And that's how it felt. So it really was disappointing that someone decided to do this with the character. I know some people are into realism or into a character being taken to their lowest common denominator.
Especially a lunatic.
Yes. We haven't even gotten to that yet. But why do this to Tiger? Why?
Yes. I completely agree because nobody was really expecting that to happen. It's like they sort of said, well, if there ever comes a point where he loses power, because it kind of stayed at 1 minute the whole season. And you're like, okay, if he doesn't lose his powers, that means this is just going to be his new limit from now on. And people accepted that. It's like, okay, he's still out there fighting, they adjusted, he's still being a hero. Well, at the end, they rushed it and made him literally drain everything, and they don't clarify if him not getting the powers back is permanent or it comes back later. They never clarify. And this seemed like they had stopped treating Tiger like he was the non-favorite when they had the Rising film, because they had seen, it was told that they had seen, and they expect Tiger to be such a fan favorite. They expected Barnaby because of how they wrote them. So when they got to the movie, they changed how people treat him. He had a fan base and was reflecting his large supporters in real life, which we thought was great. But then they got back to the second season, and it was right back to how it was. In this season, well, this half of the season was even worse because a lot of them just seemed to not like Tiger. He couldn't even talk to the people like he did the first season when he was trying to calm them down. Blue Rose or other characters had to do it because it seemed like they were saying Tiger was making things worse despite him just doing what he normally does. So it seemed like more like a little bit of a mini attack on the character for whatever reason.
Yeah. We didn't get the characters that we loved. And it wasn't just Tiger and Bunny. It was the rest of the team also. It was Fire Emblem. It was Sky High. It was Origami Cyclone. It was Blue Rose.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Dragon Kid.
And
no
new
one was
characters.
who you expected them to be. And yes, we know they were all older. And people change. But people don't generally change so that they're not whom you know they are. And that, for me, was a problem. And lastly, as you mentioned about the villain, who was really an anti-hero, but then they turned to a villain, and then they made him not even whom he was, lunatic.
Yeah, and a lot of people were also expecting that they hinted in the movie and the first season there was going to be this big showdown between him and Wild Tiger because of their ideas of justice. And it kept being hinted, and it kept building up, and it kept building up, and by the movie it was like, okay, well, since you refuse to see it my way, the next time we meet, I'm not holding back. They're like, okay, so when we look at this season 2, it's going to be a big fanfare. It never happens. They never fight each other. He doesn't become lunatic until the very end of the season or series. They took away his mother, who you didn't find out what happened. They wiped out his mother. He has a mental breakdown. He tells Tiger his father's is Mr. Legend, which we thought would be a bigger build-up. They just kind of threw it at you. And then at the very end, when you didn't know what the heck was going to come next, it seems like he may have taken himself out at the very end, so nothing that was built up season 1 ever got resolved or ever had a conclusion.
So I think that's a problem with a lot of shows that stay away a long time and come back, they leave you with a cliffhanger, and then you expect that cliffhanger to be addressed, or you expect it to go in the way in which they said it would go. And then for some reason the writers or the producers or whomever decide we're going to go in a different direction, but then they don't warn the viewers. The same thing happened in Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
The same thing has happened in many other shows. I just don't want to go down the line. But if you promise me that you're going to have a continuation of the storyline and you're going to find Oroburos and take care of them because of what they did to Bunny's family and other families, if you promise me that you're going to bring this show back and bring back the characters we love and not have it where it's unrecognizable, that's what I expect you to do. And I'm really disappointed that whomever at Netflix decided to make these changes made them.
Yeah.
We watched it, and we were expecting more of the end of season 1, like the last 3 episodes. Those were the best episodes of the entire season.
Yes.
The last 3 episodes.
Yes.
But we didn't get that. And to take Lunatic and make him just this unrecognizable character, he was strong. He had been through a lot of hardship. And I think that's the thing, maybe the writers, producers, or whomever didn't understand. All of these characters, every single character that was on the team, and even Lunatic, they had strength, inner strength in their own way. Each and every one of them had things they've gone through. They had experience, they had some type of tragedy happen in their life. And all of the heroes were still managed to be heroes. And Lunatic, even though he was confused with what happened in his life, with his dad and what happened with the mom and the abuse, he still chose in some of those instances in season 1 where he would help Tiger and Bunny. He didn't want them to be killed because they were good. He kind of like had a stain mentality. They were true heroes, and he didn't want them to be taken out. In this season, however, all that seems to have gone. He would show up. He would say some snarky things. He would, be like antagonistic with them, and you didn't know why.
Like cameos.
And they changed his design. They changed his behavior. They changed his behavior. They had him taking care of his mom, which we thought was good, especially after all that had happened, which means he'd forgiven her. Then they kill her. So, why? That's all I have to say is, why did you not give us what you promised us? If there's a season 3, we hope that you take these characters and let them have character development. That's the problem. In this season, there was no character development.
Right.
In a nutshell.
Right. And my final thing to add is like very, very minor. It was something to me that kind of stood out because some people had talked about on Twitter. Is at the very end, we had stated that a lot of the pairings they had done could be seen just like Tiger and Bunny, ambiguous. You see them as a ship, or you can see them as friends. The only one they didn't do that with seemed to be with Rock Bison and Origami Cyclone because of their age gap, so they decided to just leave them as friends. And it was confirmed at the end when Rock Bison kept asking Origami about different things that he would like. And somehow Origami came to the conclusion that he was trying to get something for Agnes, which never came up until literally the last minute, but whatever. And a lot of people were like, oh, so he likes her. Well, you didn't tell us the whole season. You didn't tell us last season, tell us this season. It doesn't seem to be mutual. They just kind of leave it there for you to ponder with. And I was really confused because, to me at least, I know some people don't agree, to me at least, it seemed like she was into Tiger until they completely took away any interactions between them this season. So for them to throw that in there, like, okay, we'll give you this one, it's like, but there's no substance to it.
That reminded me of Voltron. Yes, I mentioned Voltron, the final season, where up until that season you had interactions between Keith and Shiro. And then in that last season, there were hardly any scenes they were together or interacted. And you didn't even see him at the wedding, he was hidden. It was the same thing with Agnes and Tiger. Like, we don't want you focusing on this.
Right.
We want you to ignore it. So we're going to take everything away that's going to make you talk about it. And then they did.
Yeah, that they did, because now people are like, oh, I shipped them. I was like, but they weren't doing anything. It was nothing.
Go figure. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comments below. Have you seen Tiger and Bunny, the second core of the second season? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Did you love it? Hate it? We really want to hear your thoughts. If you haven't seen it, it's available, as far as we know, exclusively on Netflix. Give it a watch. Come back and tell us what you think. We don't know what you're going to think. If you're Tiger and Bunny fans, we really want to hear your thoughts on what happened with this season. Do you think there's going to be a season 2? Let us know as well. And if you haven't already, subscribed for updates and weekly videos on your favorite anime series, animated shows, and all things animation with us.
Yes.
Every Saturday and every day all summer long.
Yes, indeed. So, thank you so much for watching Mouse Entertainment.
I'm Mama Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.